music. Our guest anchor tonight, none other than Muthoni, drama queen, MDQ royalty in the house. Thank you. You're a lady of so many titles, a maverick recording artist, an entrepreneur, TED Fellow 2019. Congratulations. Thank you for so flying the Kenyan flag so high. So I'll just start with your speech. You're not Kenyan enough? That's what they told you?
That's what they said. And I have a lot of compassion for this idea. Because I think it betrays how small sometimes we think of ourselves, how little we think of ourselves. And this idea, I call it otherism, right? When a certain group of people decide that another group of people who are different from them are not as worthy or not as deserving. So when I came into the music industry, because I wasn't making kapuka and I wasn't making genge, the theory in the music industry was then you couldn't have a music career. And I always felt like what you really want to do is encourage diversity. You really want to open the space for very many different versions of the Kenyan experience to be represented musically, because it's such a young industry. It's in the rebirth. So it was thriving in the 60s and the 70s, and then it went through a real slump in the 90s. So when it started to come back, I feel that the thing that should have happened with the gatekeepers is to try and get as many different sounds and as many different expressions as possible, and allow for the idea of Kenya to be wider, to be more inclusive. And so that's something that stays with me. And I think we see it all the time. We see in the way we make our policies as a country, this idea of others. We don't make things include everybody. A select number of people who have access determine what everybody else then experiences.
That sort of reminds me of part of your speech, and it really caught my attention when you said we cannot build what we do not truly love, and we cannot love until we love ourselves. The thing we have to heal as Kenyans is our lack to self-love and our deep self-hate and our existential identity crisis. So then how do we heal that?
So the first thing that I think must happen is that there has to be a lot of truth-telling. Because like I say in my talk, Kenya itself, the country Kenya, this idea of the boundary that demarcates this thing that you call Kenya, is only from 1895. But the state, the people, predate that. We have been here from the beginning of time. Kenya is the place where the oldest human remains have been formed. So I often joke that Kenya invented humanity. So we are an ancient civilization. And then some people sat in a room, some white people sat in a room in Germany and decided these are now the boundaries. And they split communities. So if you think about the Maasai, if you think about the Somali community, they were just divided in half. The Luo, with some in Kenya, some in Uganda. And then people were forced together and they're told, okay, now you're a country. Do it. So how do you get these people who are put together to actually have a sense of oneness? I really feel that you have to develop the stories. The people have to tell the stories. They have to heal. We have to heal from that trauma of, the colonialists ripping us apart. We have to decolonize our minds. We have to create new narratives about what it means to be Kenya. And we have to heal the historical injustices. Kenya has so many injustices that have been met on so many different communities. And we don't talk about those things, and we just keep sweeping things under the rug and pretending that we are okay. So we shouldn't actually be surprised, for example, when we see this whole huge conversation around mental health and the crisis that people are in. It's a crisis of being. So I think that the first thing is you have to allow people to speak. And that's why the creative arts, all of them, are so powerful, because people can tell so many versions of the same story. and you really want catharsis, you really want people to say, then you really want something done about what people have said. Instead of sweeping things under the rug, we should be really encouraging thousands and thousands of historians to write the stories, and thousands of plays and thousands of movies and thousands of songs, because people then learn from their own history and they can decide what happens next.
Like, I can feel the passion. Like, it's so deep. Is this something, like, have you always been like this all through, ever since you were a child?
I'd say I was a very curious child. I was interested, and I continue to be, in the world at large. And then as I was growing, I would say that my civic interest happened by listening to older family members, sort of just talking about how the country runs and what's happening, and sort of the discontent. And so then it made me curious, So if, for example, I have an English baptism name, and talking to the older, parents, I would ask, why do I have an English name and where does that come from? And then, so discovering my identity and, for example, what it means, how the naming system in the Kikuyu culture, the value of that, the beauty of that. And for me, making decisions when I got to 18, that I want to have the things that are of me, of mine, our things. So the short answer is yes, I have always been very curious, and then I cultivated the curiosity.
So different, because apart from being a creative, which you're clearly, passionate about, you're also an entrepreneur. The different events that happened in your life, did this sort of shape up who you are as an entrepreneur? I mean, Blankets and Wine just came out of nowhere, and now 10 years and growing, we're counting more years to come, and you sort of just changed the event scene in the country. How did you get to that point of Blankets and Wine?
The truth is that it didn't come from nowhere. Before I did Blankets and Wine, for almost a year and a half, I was doing a showcase, a monthly show at a venue in Westlands. And it is by doing this gig that I understood how to run an event. So when the gig stopped working, when it couldn't grow anymore, when we were having problems with the venue, my option at that moment was either quit music or change the circumstances. So when I was having a conversation with my friends, the frustration of that moment, and the need to solve a problem for myself, that's where the idea of Blankets and Wine came up. It's like everything that you've been doing, do now the opposite, do it different, take a 180-degree turn, face another direction. So if you've been doing this thing by day, do it by night, do it by day. Everything I was doing, I just did sort of the opposite. And the thinking there was, if it doesn't work, I would still be in my stuck situation. But if it did work, I would have unlocked something for myself. And all the other artists who I liked and I admired, who were in the same boat as me, in the story of, this thing is not Kenyan enough, this thing is not pop enough, this thing is not club enough, so you can't exist as a musician, or the spaces where you can exist are very limited. So I understood that the problem was not unique to me. And if I solved it for myself, I could solve it for others. I also knew as a consumer of music that we had to change the way we consumed music. Because at that point, it's either you hear it on the radio or you experience it in a club. And I felt frustrated with the radio system, because the radio system here primarily plays top 40. So it's a very limited idea of music. And this is the idea that we keep, feeding to the people, that these particular 40 songs at any one point are what is in rotation. And then there's a lot of people who don't enjoy clubbing. It's not their scene, even if they want to be around music. So I felt like there must be a way to present music that is not on the radio and not in a club. So what is that thing?
Blankets and Wine.
That's it.
All right, so we'll be having that conversation, but I want you to do something that I do. You're clearly good at what you do, and I can't even try attempting that. But let's just give you a challenge and read news for tonight. Okay. So this is the camera, and please take it away.
We move to Nakuru County now, where a section of residents from Kaptwembo area have been moved away from a 4-kilometer stretch marked as a danger. Kenya Power and the Kenya Pipeline Company have erected beacons demarcating the stretch, which houses high voltage power and fuel lines.
Kaptembo area is one of the busiest outskirts of Nakuru town. Here, Kenya Power's high voltage lines run from Uganda to Nairobi, and the fuel line by Kenya Pipeline Company runs from Mombasa to Busia. The lines are a blessing to the people here, but can also be a curse. To avert any disaster, the Kenya Pipeline Company and the Kenya Power have blocked off these areas, and the residents are cooperating with these companies.
Tusingoje kwa sababu ile mambo kama ile ilitokea wakati ule tulikuwa pale Salga, isitutokee tupate tukiwa hapa.
Tunakumbuka kiza ambayo ilitokea Sinai. Ilikuwa hii shida. Mafuta ililiki. Watu walikufa wengi Nairobi. Na hiyo hatutaki hiyo kitu itendeke upande hii.
The residents, and we are very happy. We've had a good time. As though there are some around 11 people who they were in disagreement with us, but they went to court. But we don't know, our legal office is handling that.
Some had expressed fears of displacement and loss of businesses.
And na ile watu wote wako chini wanauzia chini ya pipeline. And Kenya Power, we have agreed and we have found a place where we are taking them. Tunawapeleka mahali kwingine, tumepata soko hapo, we are still negotiating.
Over 100 people perished in the deadly Sinai fire incident in Nairobi after a pipe burst and caught fire. Memories that still linger in the minds of many. Alan Ochanda, KTN News.
So how was it?
You think I'm ready to switch careers?
You can try. Well, I don't know if my boss will let you, but you can definitely try. How do you rate yourself out of 10?
I'd say 8.5.
Oh, okay. Confidence. I like that. Okay, so since you're so good at this, take us to a break.
This is Muthoni drama queen, singer, rapper, drummer, all-around boss lady, and you are watching the Friday briefing. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.